the last panelist, so I have a lot of time. It's a great honor to speak in this distinguished gathering in tribute to Professor Said Hossein Nasr, Ustadul Asatid, on his retirement after 70 years of academic service in Iran, in the United States, and elsewhere. I extend my gratitude to the Department of Religion at George Washington University, and especially to my friend, Professor Muhammad Fakhfouri, for organizing this event and inviting me. I first met Professor Nasr in November 2008, during the first months of my stay in the United States, a meeting that was repeated several times thereafter. Through these interactions, my admiration for his devout religiosity and mystical faith deepened. Unlike some apologetic Muslims or self-proclaimed no-Mu'tazilites, Nasr takes pride in his Islamic faith, Shiite identity, and Iranian heritage, while showing genuine respect for other religions and cultures. Nasr stands among the foremost specialists in the history of Islamic philosophy and the history of science among Muslims. From my youth, I have learned much from his works and have always considered myself as one of his distant students. I vividly recall the joy of reading an introduction to Islamic cosmological doctrine and read the three Muslim sages during my early university years. For my generation, Nasr was herald of the harmony between reason and revelation, and a guide to the intellectual heritage of Islam. His writings sometimes appear among the required readings of my courses. Following her requirement, Nasr played a pivotal role in introducing Islamic wisdom, including philosophy, Sufism, and theology to the modern world, a bridge between West and East, particularly the philosophical schools of Isfahan, Shiraz, and Tehran, both during the years he was in Iran and afterward. I still cherish his critical edition of Suhrawardi's Persian works, published as the third volume of the collected works of Sheikh al-Ishraq. Later, his co-editing History of Islamic Philosophy and Ontology of Philosophy in Persia further advanced his field. I have long benefited from such works and sought in my own modest way to continue his path. Professor Nasr is among the most influential interpreters of Islam in the Western Academy. 24 of books and hundreds of scholarly articles and lectures he has conveyed in compelling, compassionate, and intellectually vibrant vision of Islam and Shiism. He also served as the co-in-chief of the landmark volume of the study, the Quran, which has become the major reference for both scholars and the students of Islam. In Ideals and Realities of Islam, Nasr challenged a common base in modern scholarship, which being largely Sunni-based, often portrays Sunnism as orthodoxy and Shiism as heterodoxy. Nasr writes, Sunnism and Shiism are both orthodox interpretation of Islamic revelation contained providentially within Islam. both belong to total orthodoxy of Islam and do not destroy the unity of Islam. The unity of a tradition is not destroyed by different application of it, but by the loss of its principles and forms. End of his quotations. This insight reveals Nasr's inclusive vision of orthodoxy, which transcended sectarian boundaries and underscores Islam's inner unity in diversity. الوحدة في عين الكسرة. I regard Professor Nasr as one of the foremost exponents of what I have called Rahmani Islam, the Islam of compassion. Allow me to summarize this idea from an article I presented in 2010. Professor Fakhuri called him the fourth teacher. I want to call him as the best representative of Islam Rahmani, compassionate Islam in our time. Rahmani Islam stands in contrast to fascist, Taliban style, Umayyad or rigidly literalist Islam, as well as the political fundamentalism. In this understanding, none of Islam's authentic teachings are denied. Rather, certain rulings that were once valid but later misunderstood outside their original context, detached from the temporal and spatial condition of revelation, are reinterpreted and corrected. Likewise, rational and humane principle compatible with Islam are affirmed. At the time of revelation, Islam was nothing but Rahmani Islam, compassionate Islam. It needs no qualifying adjective, al-qaidul ihtirazi. Yet, as the community drifted from the Quranic spirit and absorbed harsh pre-Islamic customs, its compassionate core was obscured. Rahmani Islam rests on 10 principles: divine satisfaction, justice, rationality, compassion, ethics, human dignity and rights, freedom and free will, knowledge and expertise, democracy as a form of governance, and objective secularism. Compassion or rahmah is one of the divine laws, Sunanul Ilahi, that governs all theological, legal, and ethical reasoning. A religion whose God is Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim, and whose prophet is a mercy to the world, Rahmatan lil Alameen, must be in its nature a religion of mercy, not of cruelty or vengeance. The term Rahmani Islam thus emphasizes both on certainty of mercy in face and a boundary against interpretations that glorify violence and repression. In recent decades, this merciless reading, especially in Iran, has harmed Islam's image and essence, ruling in the name of Islam, but against Islam itself. It seems to me that Professor Nasr would agree with the first 9 principles of Rahmani Islam, though he may differ the 10th, objective secularism. Yet, like many masters of Islamic wisdom, Nasr is among the most eloquent advocates of compassionate, spiritual, and rational Islam. And the term Rahmani Islam aptly describes his intellectual and moral legacy. Professor Nasr is also the most distinguished representative of traditionalism by capital T in our time. One may disagree with him, yet cannot ignore the profound influence of him. A fair critic of his thought in an act of respect and acknowledgement. Nasr maintains that the traditional world was coherent and defensible order, while modernity has brought the greatest calamity upon humankind. For him, tradition is a comprehensive paradigm in which all dimensions of existence find meaning through their relation to the sacred and transcendence. Revelation serves as the bridge between infinite and the finite. Traditionalists believe modernity serves this bond, enthroning human reason as a self-sufficient and marginalizing the sacred. In traditional Islam and modern world, Professor Nasr classified Muslims' responses to modernity into 4 groups: modernists, messianists, fundamentalists, and traditionalists. He powerfully defends the last and criticizing other 3 for their extremism. Yet, one may ask, do all Muslims fit neatly into these 4 categories? Nasr does not fully distinguish between traditional or conservative Muslims and philosophical traditionalists by capital T in the Yenum Shuan sense. In his writing, traditional Islam is sometimes appropriated by the traditionalist project by capital T. Furthermore, Nasr's portrayal of modernist Muslims, while valid for some imitators who reject their heritage, does not fit all. Many contemporary Muslim thinkers have critically embraced aspects of modern science and social thought, not out of Western imitation, but because they found them rationally and ethically superior to older forms. This selective and reasoned acceptance cannot be dismissed as critical modernism. I would like to raise 2 key questions concerning tradition and modernity, which I also addressed in my earlier critique of Professor Nasr. First, can tradition in its absolute form be defended? Is everything traditional inherently true? Must we not evaluate inherited tradition through rational and critical criteria? The mere presence of something within a sacred tradition does not ensure in truth. Some elements of our heritage, such as astrology, slavery, the subordination of the woman, and autocratic rule, though once accepted, are now ethically and intellectually untenable. Rejecting such elements is not impiety, and its fidelity to the moral spirit of revelation. Second, is modernity wholly corrupt? Must every phenomenon associated with secular civilization be rejected for its supposed detachment from God? Modernity is not a single metaphysical essence, but a concept and evolving construct. It should be evaluated element by element. What accords with reason and moral consciousness may be accepted. What conflicts with them must be rejected. Being modern is neither a mark of depravity nor a proof of truth. Just being traditional is not automatically virtuous. The dialogue between faith and modernity can, in fact, enrich both sides through engagement with modern philosophy, hermeneutics, social sciences, and comparative theology. Muslim thinkers have discovered neglected dimensions of revelation and recognized errors in earliest interpretations. This is what modern Muslim reformers may be renewal of religious understanding, Islahul Ma'rifat al-Diniyya. While divine religion itself, as preserved in the guarded tablet Allahul Mahfuz, is perfect, human understanding of revelation is not perfect. It is susceptible to superstition, local custom, and intellectual limitation. Hence, the disciplined reform of religious knowledge and law is not legitimate but necessary. We must thank traditionalists for their insightful critique of modernity, yet also recognize the difference between critique and absolute rejection. My defense of reform remains faithful to the non-negotiable principles of Islam, distinct from the relativism of some Muslim revisionist intellectuals. My last point. Beyond philosophical concerns, one must ask, can traditionalism solve the concrete problems of today's Muslims? Muslim society suffer from authoritarianism, underdevelopment, and intellectual stagnation. What is traditionalist response to these crises? The realms of politics, economics, and sciences cannot be governed by metaphysics or mysticism alone. The wisdom of the perennial philosophy may guide our value, but cannot substitute for practical reason and institutional reform. Ultimately, I believe one can be both a faithful Muslim, believe in God, prophecy, and the hereafter, and at the same time be a modern, enlightened individual capable of critical engagement with one's time. This balanced approach reflects the prophetic spirit: fidelity without rigidity, openness without surrender. Given this perspective, one cannot defend the divine origin of monarchy, theocratic rule, the denial of political freedom, or rejection of democracy on grounds of Western influence. Nor can revolutions be condemned merely for being non-traditional. These reflections come from someone who struggled against both authoritarian regimes in Iran, has been imprisoned by both before and after revolution, and yet regard liberal democracy as only one among the many imperfect human response to the quest of justice and freedom. Final word. Professor Sayyid Hussein Nasr is the source of pride of Iran, Islam, and Shiism in the contemporary world. His many virtues far outweigh his shortcomings, and who among us is free from error? May God forgive us and him alike. May his life be long and his contributions over greater. Thank you.